Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session that Helen's going to lead us on accessible content creation. This is all about images and alt text. So this is our part of our series of bite-sized learning. This is, I think, session 5 of 8. So we are getting fully immersed into everything now. So hopefully this will give you some much more information about images and alt text. I'm going to hand over to Helen in a sec, and then at the end I'll just go through where we go next with where the next session is, and also how to access all of the resources. So over to you, Helen.
Thank you very much. So this session is about images and alt text. And I'm literally going to go through the benefits of images and infographics generally. And then I'm going to go through some image accessibility tips. And then I'm going to do a bit of a demonstration of adding alt text. And then at the end of the slide are some useful links. So once this is uploaded to your system, you'll have it all. So I don't think anybody would argue that images can be really powerful and they can aid learning. And it's said that images we can process 60,000 times faster than written text. It helps us recall information better. It helps us, well, it's better than kind of text in terms of you get something very, very quickly. Diagrams, perfect way to convey ideas, especially complex topics. And most of us, when we kind of skim read things, look at kind of images and headings in content before the text. So in terms of learning, they are completely ideal. Again, images can, kind of be emotive. They can express feelings, convey powerful ideas, and also they are a very, very important part of easy read formats. If you've ever seen an easy read format, it's very, very image led. So basically, when you're using images, just so there's not too much going on, we need to make sure we're using images and media that support the information and concepts on the page. My image on here, does that support the context on the page being a handy tool? Debatable. But don't just add images just to spice it up like I have. Avoid images of text. We'll go through that later. You can use things like illustrations, maps, charts, icons, photos. They're all great for using in learning. But if you're using it on the web or you're using it in a document, just make sure you optimize them. So something straight from a camera makes your kind of file sizes enormous. And if people haven't got a huge amount of data, say they're accessing on a phone, just make sure that you're kind of optimizing them. There's a link here to resizing images in Microsoft Paint if you've never done that before. It's a great video. But for me personally, when language or anxiety is a barrier, visuals really, really help. My own son is autistic and images are part and parcel of our world. There's a couple of really useful links on this slide when you access it later on. There's also things like infographics, which are a great way of getting information over. You can do that with data, you can do it as a process, you can do it as a timeline, conceptual ideas, highlight similarities and differences. If you searched Google and had a look for infographics, you'd see all sorts of things. But I'm going to show you how you can actually create your own infographic in PowerPoint. I've got a very basic example, but I'm just going to show you the implications of accessibility and how you need to kind of think that through, but I will show you that in a demo. So, as I said, images are incredibly powerful, but what if you kind of have difficulty seeing images? So I'm just going to go through some accessibility considerations for images. So for example, we use images of data. For example, this is a graph on the screen. One side you can see the color version, the other side you can see black and white. And if you're only using color to identify things, it's very, very difficult once you've kind of taken the color away, say it's printed in black and white, or someone is colorblind, they cannot necessarily kind of differentiate between the different items. So if I said to you, which one's item 3 or 4 on the graph, you probably wouldn't be able to identify it. So there are ways around it. You can label your items. So if you look on the screen now, we've got the graph where it's got labels on the actual graph itself and on what's called the legend. So it's item 1, 2, 3, and 4. but also it's got a pattern in the graph as well. So if it was printed in black and white, even without labels, you can differentiate between two different things. What I've actually included on here is a link to show you how to do that. It's actually quite simple to do. So there's a lovely video that you can be able to access to see how to do that if you need to. Another thing with images, and I think we've covered this before slightly, but text normally is the most important part of content, and normally kind of given an instruction, or it's a heading or a label, and the image usually kind of helps to kind of add to the context or make it make sense. But you need to remember images and the color contrast. So at the top you can see where the text is over the image, and at the bottom of the visual there's a bit of a block behind, so that color contrast is still there, but so is the image. Now let's move on. What if you have students who can only hear content, or if images just don't load? Say somebody's having difficulty. What I'm going to do is go through alt text now, which is kind of one of the most well-known things, if you like, for images for accessibility. But I'm just going to go through some examples and give you some information that's hopefully going to be helpful to you. So on screen now, I've got a question that says, where are the fire exits? Okay, and the image hasn't loaded for some reason on screen, and I've put the alt text of layout of building and fire exits. A lot of people label things through alt text rather than use it as an alternative for the image. So what I've got here is just a label, layout of building and fire exits. It doesn't help me answer the question where the fire exits are. There may be some learners that vital piece of information could make a very significant difference to the circumstances. So if I move forward and show you what the image should look like and what the alt text would be, or I would suggest the alt text would be, this is what it is. So I have literally just stolen this image from Google, and how would you describe it meaningfully? So it's not a label. I've put evacuation layout map of the building, showing the fire exits as all three doors of the building. The map also includes the location of fire extinguishers, which are placed near the fire exits. If you did not have that image, that alt text would give you a really, really good idea exactly where those fire exits are. What I'm actually going to do very quickly now is demonstrate to you, if you don't already know this, how to add alt text. So I'm just going to copy that as the text I'm going to do it. You literally click on your image, you can right click, view alt text, and you'd put it in that box. It's as simple as that. That image now has alt text. So if anybody is listening to the image or the image isn't showing, people now have got that would read to them, or would show up. If I go back to the previous image, it would actually come up as some text there, so you could actually read it rather than see it. So that's that one. The next screen I've got here is literally me doing a screen grab of a previous slide that I've just done. So on here is the infographic slide. We've got information, we've got words on the screen. The problem is here is I've screen grabbed an image of text. Now what I'd have to do with that is actually write all of that text into the alt text box like I've just done with the other one. So you're better off not using an image of text. Of course you can screen grab the image, but I would write text as text because that is more readable. It can be selected and copied and pasted and all sorts of things, and it's a lot more flexible than that. So try and avoid, if you can, images of text. So moving on. Now, alt text, which I've just shown you. So for example, the one where we did the map, where we described that perfectly. For the context of that, there was the question of where the fire extinguishers are, and we wrote the exact wording for that. What I've got here is 2 pages or 2 slides of exactly the same thing, but I would actually use alt text differently. So if you heard this page or the image didn't load, what would be the alt text on the page? you would probably have to explain that this is a graph of, if I'm not mistaken, I have edited. So I've got here, oh no, different. I've done the wrong alt text on here, look. No, bar graph representing the favourite colours of children. The graph shows the results as red 8, blue 7, green 5, yellow 9 and pink 6. Okay, so that would be useful in the context of just that image showing. If, however, on the slide, I actually put the favourite colours of children in a table, so people could hear or see the table. So more so if you're on assistive technology and you heard the table, would you need to hear the description all over again for that chart? If we've already got the information on screen or you've written about it, that image is just like a visual representation of the data that's in the chart. So I could, in this context, because the information is already on the page, just write that label, chart showing the favourite colour of children. So that's slightly the difference. So the context of where and when you use alt text or how you write it, it very much depends on what you've got on the screen or what's in the document around it. Sometimes you can make your life a little bit easier by adding things like this table, so you don't have to write as much alt text. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of go to the next slide and show you, I'd say it's an infographic. It's a very, very kind of rough infographic, but it just shows you the power of PowerPoint, but also the accessibility features of actually making an infographic work in PowerPoint. So if I go to the next slide, oh, something's gone a bit odd wrong there. There we go. So infographics, what I've done here is if you went on Google and you saw infographics, there's usually like an icon or a picture and there's some words next to it and they're in blocks and bits and pieces. So what I've got on screen here is 6 items that I've put together, some icons, some text, and it's an infographic. Now, if I come out of that and I'm going to look at this in terms of its reading order, so I can do something like this. It's not a problem at all, but I'm just going to go, I'm going to go to review, check accessibility. And what it's saying is on this screen, I've got reading order, which it's kind of questioning. And what that means is, if I just go to this, I would, if you were reading this, you would kind of read the title, you'd again go provide alt text, do this, do that, and you'd read it in order, left to right. The problem is here, I've got the titles reading, then I've got a rectangle down here. I'm going to untick that rectangle because it's just decorative. I don't need that. I've got graphic. Do I need alt text on those or are they decorative? I'm going to suggest they're decorative, but what you'll notice is they're all not really necessarily in the order that I want them read. I'm going to untick those. This is a very quick way of making these decorative. And then the text boxes, what you'll notice is they're all reading in sort of jumped order all over the place. So that one needs to go first. And what I've done is literally dragged the item. If you can see, I'm dragging them. So I've got that one reads, then that one reads, then let's get that one there. I'm dragging it. So what I've got is I'm reading all those things in order. So it will read the title and then the boxes all in order for you to see what you want. And then we've got some arrows here. Again, these are just decorative. So what I've got here in this reading order is I've got an infographic that reads basically just the information out for you. And I'm going to show you, I've just fixed all the accessibility issues in there. But what I did have in here is obviously we've gone through adding alt text, we've gone through alt text in context, but also if you wanted to make those more visual things in PowerPoint as kind of infographics, you can. PowerPoint's a great tool because it reads objects, object by object by object, and you can tell it to read in the order that you need it to be heard or read if someone was either tabbing through it or it was reading out in terms of something that would read content. So if I just go back, I've got a final screen for you. And this is where you can get free images. You probably may be aware, you may not be, but here's some websites with free stock images that you can use. One's called Pixabay, one's called Pexels, and one's called Unsplash. When you go on the website, they do sometimes have those areas at the top with kind of, the paid for images, but the search results are great. I personally like Pexels, mainly because it's got some really good images for diversity. And that's something just not forgetting, adding alt text when using images. Consider diversity and representation, especially if you've got pictures of people. And I've also got some links on here for written instructions of how to add alt text and a YouTube video of how to add alt text as well. So hopefully you've got the support you need. And over to you, Jake.
Thank you very much, Helen. That was brilliant as usual. I've just posted everybody into the chat the link to our Designed for All SharePoint pages. So you can go there. I'll just share my screen and just show you what those look like. This is where we are putting all of the resources that Helen's sharing with us, plus the recordings of these sessions. So you can go back and have another look, and you can also share them with your colleagues who might have missed the session. So if we go down and have a look, we've got this section, whole section on accessible digital content creation. And then in there, you will see all of these sessions. So you can see that we're up to session 5. And so we've been adding as we go. And if you just click on any of these icons, it will take you to a page where there's all the resources that accompany the information that Helen has shared with us. So that's where you can find it. It's in Gallimaufry and it's in the accessibility channel. Okay, so anybody got any questions for Helen before we let her go?